This movie begins by showing 3 Iraqi cops stuck in a building. They've also nabbed 2 ISIS guys, but more ISIS folks are shooting at them. They manage to hang on, but eventually they run out of bullets. All they have left is a small knife and a busted glass bottle. Just when things seem super grim, they hear gunshots from a different direction, but luckily, those bullets aren't for them. One of the cops, a guy named Kawa, checks on his uncle, but sadly, his uncle got shot in the chest and didn't make it. Once the shooting calms down, Kawa peeks outside, and the Nineveh SWAT team, the super-skilled Iraqi police, swoop in and rescue them. Kawa was totally shocked to see the SWAT team in person because the news had spread that all of them got wiped out during a mission. Major Jassim, the leader of the SWAT team, asked Kawa and his buddy Jamal why they were there. Jamal chimed in, explaining that they'd been chasing and nabbed some ISIS folks who were trying to smuggle drugs in exchange for guns and ammo. Then Major Jassim asked Kawa how long he'd been a cop, and Kawa said he'd only been on the job for 2 months. But Major Jassim thought Kawa had some serious fighting skills since he survived the ISIS attack. Meanwhile, the SWAT team grabbed the ISIS men that Kawa caught alive. In a surprising twist, they sliced the ISIS guy's throat and recorded it on their phone. Major Jassim then pulled out a list of names of people linked to ISIS and asked for Kawa and Jamal's full names. They did this because some ISIS members were also part of the Iraqi police. After checking, they found out that Kawa and Jamal were not on the ISIS list. Then Major Jassim asked if any of their family members had been killed by ISIS. Kawa mentioned that his uncle had just died in the earlier battle. Major Jassim also asked if Kawa was married, and Kawa replied that if he were married, he wouldn't be in Mosul fighting. Well, this made one of the SWAT team members, Walid, really mad, and he wanted to fight Kawa. Luckily, Major Jassim stepped in and calmed things down. Besides all that, Major Jassim gave Kawa a SWAT hat, which was like an invitation to join their team. Those questions he asked earlier were just to see if Kawa had a strong reason to fight against ISIS. At first, Kawa wasn't sure about joining them because he didn't know their true goals. Major Jassim tried to persuade Kawa by telling him that they had taken down the ISIS member who had killed Kawa's uncle earlier. Eventually, Kawa agreed to join the SWAT team and gave them some vests and clothes. Jamal took Kawa's uncle's body back to the city. So, Kawa joined the SWAT team, and while they were on the way, he asked Walid about their real mission, but Walid didn't answer the question. He just told Kawa to follow Major Jassim's orders. Later on, they entered a building to rest. Kawa sat by a window with Mr. Ali, and they listened to a song together. But suddenly, they heard a car approaching. Kawa and Major Jassim looked out the window and saw a local police car coming, driven by Jamal. However, Jamal surprised everyone by throwing a smoke bomb, and then another car came up behind him. Shockingly, that car exploded. Unfortunately, Mr. Ali didn't hear Major Jassim's command and got caught in the explosion, which sadly cost him his life. Major Jassim was pretty upset with Kawa for not warning Mr. Ali and even thought Kawa might be a traitor like Jamal. But luckily, other SWAT team members calmed Major Jassim down. Major Jassim then gave Mr. Ali's phone to Kawa and asked him to take care of the cell phone so they could give it to Mr. Ali's family. They took Mr. Ali's body to the car and said a prayer for him. After that, they planned a route to go somewhere, but it was a risky one with federal police checkpoints. Major Jassim chose it anyway because there were only a few SWAT members left. On their journey, they came across 2 boys pushing their father's body. Major Jassim offered them both a chance to join the SWAT team, but the older son declined because he had promised to bury his father. However, the younger brother, who couldn't bear the harsh war conditions any longer, decided to join the SWAT team. As they kept going on their journey, Kawa was still puzzled about what a SWAT mission really meant. After a while, they reached a checkpoint and got questioned by the federal police, but Major Jassim quickly gave the police a bribe. Kawa was even more confused now, wondering why elite SWAT members needed to do this. When they arrived at their destination, the SWAT team took care of Mr. Ali's body alongside the bodies of other soldiers. Meanwhile, Major Jassim went off to find some families who could take care of the boy they had with them. Not long after, a federal police officer recognized them. The officer mentioned that the SWAT team's leader thought they were all dead. Major Jassim, knowing this, approached the officer and made a few threats to make him act like he had never seen the SWAT team before. They kept on with their journey, and once more, Kala asked what the SWAT team was really up to, but no one gave Kala an answer. Then, Kala opened Mr. Ali's phone and saw pictures of the ISIS massacred by the SWAT team. There was also a video showing Mr. Ali's older brother, who had been brutally killed by ISIS. Finally, Kala understood that all those photos and videos on the phone were proof that Mr. Ali had done his job well, so his family could get the phone back. Kala also started to realize that the SWAT team's main goal was to get revenge on ISIS by taking out any ISIS members they came across, without mercy. Later on, the SWAT team entered a dangerous area. They saw people from that area trying to leave, evacuating. Shockingly, shots rang out from behind the civilians, causing some of them to fall from the shots. The SWAT team tried to cover the residents with gunfire, but sadly, one of the SWAT team members got shot and didn't make it. After they secured the area, Walid and Major Jassim started keeping an eye on the surroundings. Walid pointed out a building they were heading to, but he seemed pretty nervous about it. They checked the best way to reach that building. Meanwhile, Kala sat near the ISIS guy's body and saw a mother crying because her young son had been shot by ISIS soldiers. Kala took a selfie with Mr. Ali's phone, but then they realized the ISIS member was still alive, just barely. Kala was about to use his axe to finish him off, but Major Jassim stopped him. He wanted the ISIS guy to suffer slowly. Soon after, they heard a call to prayer. Major Jassim told his team to take turns standing guard and praying. But just as Major Jassim was about to start praying, Walid called him over. He'd spotted the ISIS command center nearby. One of the team members mentioned having friends in joint operations who could bomb the ISIS base if they sent the coordinates. But Major Jassim turned down the idea, insisting that they should handle it themselves with the 10 members they had left. Major Jassim told Walid to make a choice, and after a lengthy discussion, Walid decided they should stay hidden and avoid being spotted by the enemy until they reached their target building. Unexpectedly, they heard the buzzing of drones all around them. One of the drones hit their SWAT team's vehicle, causing a big explosion. Major Jassim and the team quickly got ready because another drone was on its way. Meanwhile, shots were fired from another building, taking down the incoming drone. Surprisingly, in that building, there were Iranian militant troops. Major Jassim saw an opportunity and offered to trade for weapons and gear. However, the Iranian militants had plenty of weapons and ammo, but were interested in cigarettes. Luckily, the SWAT team had lots of cigarettes in their car. Major Jassim went down to the basement of the building to negotiate. After some haggling, they agreed to exchange 1 box of cigarettes for 1 box of ammunition. Before they started trading, Major Jassim wanted to see the Iranian militants they had as prisoners. When they did, they were shocked to find out that one of the prisoners was Jamal, the guy who had betrayed them. Kala was called in, and he finally came face to face with Jamal, the traitor. Tensions flared up between the SWAT team and the Iranian militants because the SWAT team wanted to take Jamal, but the Iranians refused. Out of nowhere, Kala grabbed the axe he had with him, and with a lot of emotion, he swiftly took off Jamal's head. This gruesome act silenced the atmosphere, and the two sides continued their negotiations. Surprisingly, Walid arrived with some Middle Eastern cigarettes he had, hoping to trade them for an RPG owned by the Iranian militants. Initially, the Iranians agreed, but they were only willing to give 1 RPG bullet. However, Walid changed his mind and decided they should launch an attack on the nearby ISIS command center instead. While on the way, Major Jassim finally explained to Kala that the SWAT team was currently no longer receiving ammunition supplies and assistance from central headquarters because they had previously been ordered to withdraw and would be sent to remote villages so that they would not fight again. But Major Jassim did not agree with this, so he and his team deliberately ran away and cut off contact with central headquarters. So if they are caught by the central headquarters, then Major Jassim will be tried in the military court. Kala didn't really care about those reasons anymore. He just wanted to know what he needed to know when the time came. He seemed to really despise what ISIS was doing. As they were on their way, out of the blue, they got ambushed by ISIS fighters who had blocked the road. Sadly, one of their team members tried to move forward, but another guy named Amr accidentally shot him in the head from behind. Things got even crazier when Walid threw a grenade, but he didn't throw it right, and it bounced back at them. hitting Kawa in the face with grenade fragments. After a tough battle, they managed to take down the ISIS fighters and tend to Kawa's injuries. They continued their journey on foot, and while searching a building, they unexpectedly stumbled upon more ISIS members. The SWAT team came out on top again, but sadly, they lost another team member. Finally, they reached the ISIS command center in the area. Major Jassim divided the team into strategic positions to take down the ISIS. Unfortunately, when Walid fired the RPG weapon, it failed to explode and their mission didn't succeed. During that battle, they had to sacrifice one more team member, but they still managed to defeat the ISIS members. They regrouped and took a 90-minute break at the former ISIS headquarters. Major Jassim spotted a bunch of explicit magazines on a table, which made him uncomfortable, so he collected them in a basket. But when he lifted the basket, it turned out to be a bomb trap, resulting in an explosion that tragically took Major Jassim's life. When they saw this, Walid and all the SWAT team members were in shock because they had lost the leader who had been planning everything for them. However, Kawa quickly spoke up, saying they had to keep going with their mission, even though he didn't really know what the mission was. He believed there had to be a good reason, so the SWAT team was ready to fight and even risk their lives. Now with only 6 members left, including Kawa, the SWAT team returned to the building they had been targeting all along. After a while, they finally reached the building. They moved forward cautiously and reached a door. Surprisingly, Walid had the key, but he looked too nervous to open the door. Once it was open, Walid entered and shot an ISIS member who was in the place right in the head. Kawa finally realized that the house was Walid's house. Walid then hugged his wife and children, who he had not seen for a long time, and was being held captive by ISIS. Seeing this, Kawa was silent, because he had realized that their real mission was to save the children and wives of the SWAT team who were still alive when the city of Mosul was captured by ISIS. The SWAT team also told Kawa that Major Jassim had a family. Sadly, ISIS already knew who Major Jassim's family was because before they joined ISIS, they were all criminals that Major Jassim and the SWAT team had captured. Due to this, ISIS hunted down and killed Major Jassim's family. After that, the SWAT team continued their mission to rescue Amir's son, whose location they had found, and that's how the movie Mosul ended. The moral lesson we can take from this story is that sometimes we might not understand the real reason behind what we're doing right away. It teaches us to keep going and stay dedicated to a cause, even when things are tough and uncertain.